Hi everyone. I thought it was time for an update. I haven't really posted anything in a while, but a lot's been happening, which is why I haven't really had the bandwidth, I guess, to post, think about shooting and editing and posting a video. But so for now, I thought I'd just do like a vlog type update about where I'm at. I had a bit of a breakthrough. I was like, for some reason I started watching videos about witchcraft on YouTube, and I got kind of onto this chain reaction of watching all these different content creators talking about their practices. And I didn't really know anything about witchcraft except that it was like, it's been kind of popular in like alternative and queer scenes, maybe forever, but like in my recent experience as well. And I was kind of like, it's pretty much just a spiritual practice. And the only difference between one spiritual practice and another is that they use different tools and symbols, which is cool. Like, the variety is what makes spirituality and life great. But yeah, like it's easy to think that stuff like witchcraft is tacky because of its investment in the symbols and in the kind of aesthetic, like the dark, witchy, earthy aesthetic. But it's such a fine line, it's the same kind of thing with hippies. Like, it's such a fine line between like actual investment and splendor in the kind of earthy, traditional and deep life and work and craft, and the kind of shallow, avoidant, aestheticized, popularized version of it. But I think, like, although it can be hard to distinguish that fine line sometimes, generally I think it's obvious, like, what is authentic interest and engagement in life and the earth. In like plants and herbs and food and awareness, your self-awareness, the fact that you are existing and what the fuck that even is. And the kind of like second, third wave chasing that, not really understanding it, but just thinking it's cool. Which I think is like, yeah. It's better than nothing, I guess. It's better than no interest, but it's not real interest. It's kind of like artificial interest. But anyway, whatever. It's like, it's not what you're interested in, it's the level at which you're interested in it, right? It's the same kind of thing with craft. Like, when I started doing pottery, it really, like, I was kind of turned on by pottery for the same reasons as everyone else, but then turned off by the way people engaged with it, because, like, you're interested in a certain thing, a certain practice, because it's got access to some level of depth that you aren't currently accessing for whatever reason. But then if you engage with that thing by in a way that then blocks or dilutes the depth of engagement, then you're back where you started anyway. So there's no use in like getting into witchcraft or meditation or spirituality or religion or creative practice or even like a skills based practice or craft or trade if you're only going to use it as another placebo to keep you in the shallow zone. Meditation or especially yoga, is really popular, and it's a similar kind of thing. Like, it's so easy to just go and do yoga and be like, I do yoga. But it's like, do you? are you doing it, or are you just going and doing the poses? Like, is your body's just doing it? You're not actually going into the zone that it could get you to if you were there for it, which I guess is what people mean by showing up. But meditation too has become more popular, and there's like, you know, meditation apps, and there's like a million courses and shit for getting into it, selling it. But it's like, if you're not actually really doing it, then you're not doing it. You know, going to the course is not doing the meditation. Doing the meditation process even is not getting into the zone of meditation or the zone of consciousness that is the purpose of actually doing the practice. Which is a dynamic I talk about all the time, or even too much, because it's kind of prevalent in the world. Everything has become about representations and aesthetic and the kind of aesthetic enjoyment of things rather than the things themselves, which, you know, is exacerbated by the accessibility of media, blah blah blah. But even media itself, I think, has like gone up a few levels in shallowness. You know, like the movies that you could see, even, or even TV, I think, from even like 20 and 30 years ago, it's just feels like there's a bit more of a force of expression or creativity behind it. But that just might be grass is greener on the other side, I don't know. But in the last few years especially, I've really gotten into doing the craft of things, and the way in which the craft of something is a way to access yourself, or to view yourself in a different way, or view deeper levels of yourself, just like meditation is. And although I don't necessarily think that that was like an original purpose of a craft, say like pottery, but I do think that everything that we do and make has always kind of been a self-portrait in a way. You know, like we have always had this idea that humans are the only ones that make things, or, you know, make tools or make whatever. And so the process of making something like pottery, like making cups, or making, you know, chisels or swords or furniture, is kind of like the process of practicing being human. And so I don't necessarily think that like that kind of existential or like spiritual level is the original purpose of crafts, but I do think whatever craft or kind of skill or practice you involve yourself in, depending on your interest, can be taken to that level, and that it is important to take it to that level. Otherwise you're just fucking around, you know? Like it's the line between wasting time and self-cultivation. And so I definitely think, you know, even the most basic yoga class can be turned into a spiritual practice. But the difference is in your awareness and the way that you engage with it. And so coming back to witchcraft too, or, you know, the craft, it's the way that you engage with things like materials, like herbs. Herbs is the first thing that I like really kind of like got me watching or interested about it, was because, you know, I've been interested in herbs for ages. I'm drinking herbal tea and whatever, drinking even just tea. Tea's like got herbal medicinal attributes in itself. But that was like what made me realize that like, oh, witchcraft isn't bullshit. It's just like a set of traditional practices and a set of, you know, on the one hand, like health and like healing practices, and on the other hand, kind of spiritual practices that are lenses into the nature of the world around us. You know, like when you go through a process, whether it's like a guided meditation or a spell or like, you know, an incantation or a ritual, it's just a process of getting, like a story, of getting into the zone of seeing the world in that certain way. And like that's what mythology has always been about too. You know, you sit around the campfire and you tell the stories, and the stories get you into a zone, and then you view the world from that zone. And because so many of our stories now, like that we learn through media and through education primarily, get you into the zone of this really like shallow, externalized, separative, competitive mode, worldview, rather than one of like the way that you treat the environment dictates how the environment ends up, and then the way that it treats you, you know, or like the way that you treat other people is going to dictate the way other people treat you, blah blah blah. And though we still have those kind of sayings around, I don't think we learn them fully without really like having the culture and the story and the ritual built around them. And so I've kind of been contemplating and talking for ages about that balance that we're trying to draw between convenience and richness. You know, like of course we can just have a machine make all the cups, and then we don't have to make the effort. But like the piece that we're missing in that puzzle is that making the effort is the part that makes something rich. So you're actually losing out in more ways than one if you get a lower quality object and you lose the experience yourself of making something. Then you also lose the experience of using the thing that you have made or that someone in your community has made. And so like various facets of your life lose that potential richness that they could have if you made it yourself. And I think food is the same. I think pretty much everything that we use is the same. I can't really think of anything that is better automated. You know, like this idea that easier is better. It's kind of part of the shallow worldview that we've gotten into. Because if you look around, like mental health rates, for example, I think we could draw a correlation there and say that easier is not better for us, for our well-being and for our kind of development and fulfillment, self-fulfillment. I actually made this cup. You know, it's not that good, but it's great. You know, it's not pretty, but it's beautiful in a way. And, you know, it holds liquid, it holds tea, and it's got meaning. It's got impact on my life beyond its functional value, although it has the functional value as well. So it's like, it's kind of hypocritical to hold up yoga on the one hand as like this great health practice, but then say that something like witchcraft or manifestation or whatever it is that people are doing is woo-woo. Because ultimately they're the same thing, but what you're doing in that comparison is glorifying the shallow version and glorifying shallowness and, you know, shaming practices that are designed to get you into a deeper relation with the world and with your environment, which is precisely the thing that our society and our world is lacking. Every single problem in society can be drawn back to the lack of depth and lack of engagement intentional engagement with the world around us and everything in it. You know, the way that we're treating the environment is because we don't have an understanding with the environment. We don't see it as alive or, you know, intelligent or dynamic. We just see it as abstract, inanimate resources that we would be, you know, crazy to not exploit. But it's the same thing with like for example, all the wood I get for my building, I get for free from houses that are being demolished. And houses from like 100 years ago or more, especially, but even like probably 50 years ago, compared to ones from like 20 or 30 years ago, which are already being demolished because everyone wants a new house now. The wood from the older houses is so much harder and stronger, and I imagine would last a lot longer. Obviously we can only test it for the amount of time it's been around, but like the wood, like I got some wood from a house that was probably only 20 or 30 years old, and it was really soft and like light, like whatever, like the quality of the wood production is low, and I'm sure they produce a whole lot more wood in a much shorter amount of time because they've figured out ways of doing it faster. But there's wood and then there's wood, you know? There's wood that's like achieved a certain level of durability and but like also like a sense of like a level of energy or something, like a kind of a refinement of its energy into this like amazing big natural tree. And it's like it's the being natural that makes it strong and beautiful. You can't replicate it in a way that isn't natural. You know, you could replicate all the conditions, but it would still not be the natural growth. You know, like it has to be exposed to a certain degree at least to like the elements, to chaos, in order to and have to overcome it in order to reach that quality. And the things that we make are the same. You know, it might take you a while to make a cup this good even though it's not what most people would consider to be nice. But like, it's not just about getting the nice cup, it's about going through that process and overcoming that kind of grappling with chaos, in the sense, you know, in its kind of like diluted embodiment, in just something that you don't know or understand and that you don't know how to do, and confronting that, and, you know, ideally not going to a class, not looking at the book, like, and just confronting it is like it's like a building block for your soul, like for your life experience. And it's like a certain kind of experience that you can't get another way and that you can't replicate. Like they say in Naruto, which is an anime, and I'm sorry, there's no shortcut to becoming Hokage. Which is the top level. There's no, you know, there's no like way around. There's no convenient or easy way to getting to the top. But even to getting anywhere, there's no shortcut to getting even to like a mid-level. You still have to get there, and you still have to kind of go through those emotional, existential hurdles to get there. And that's not the minus, that's not the negative point of doing it yourself and doing it the hard way or the long way. That is actually like the goal of doing it that way. That's like the part of meditation or building a skill or prayer or, you know, any kind of ritual or process that you would undertake. That is like the true meaning and purpose of doing it. Like that's the real thing that you want from it. And so watching these witchcraft YouTube really opened my eyes to that there was like a whole nother bubble of people cultivating and promoting that sense of engagement with the world that I myself had kind of shunned or looked down upon as like less, you know, sophisticated than my practices. And like that was why I hadn't really noticed what, you know, the potential in that kind of craft or whatever, because of my own preconceptions about it. But you know, like they talk about cultivating an engagement with like the spirit of the herbs that you use, just for example. But or if with anything that you use, like if you use like wood or tools or whatever, it's about, you know, it's not just about like getting the tool, it's about activating it and investing energy in it and using it as a focal point to train your consciousness or awareness or sensitivity to sense deeper layers of its quality, or, you know, in other words, its energy, which makes it no different from qigong or meditation. It's just that the tool is, say, a wand or a knife or a herb or water, or, you know, all manner of things that you might use in like spell work, versus, you know, the breath or imagery or the body, like movement in the body. But basically the whole point of Whirlpool and what I'm trying to put into a system is that every practice or habit or craft or skill that we foster in our lives is and can be that if you invest that awareness in it. And so it doesn't matter if it's like drawing cartoons or, I don't know, something that people think is really stupid, like, yeah, I can't think of anything stupid because everything's got a good reason behind it. But you know, like any kind of making or dancing, cooking, you know, even making cakes or whatever it is that you're obsessed with, like K-pop or like flowers, like it's so easy to find a doorway into consciousness or spirituality or magic. They're like literally everywhere in front of you, but you just have to choose to invest that depth in it and let it be something enriching rather than something vacuous. Because you can do the reverse too, like we see with Christianity, for example, or, you know, the church, not Christianity itself, but like turning something that's supposed to be about spiritual cultivation and enlightenment and turning it into a system that inhibits enlightenment. Or, you know, like the medical system, taking something that's supposed to be about health and healing and turning it into a system that produces addictions for people and produces illnesses in people and produces patterns that maintain illness rather than health. Like the field is open for any kind of interpretation or cultivation or transmutation. And so the only thing to really be aware of is what it is you are really trying to cultivate, and the fact that you're going to use these things that you enjoy and are invested in and are good at to cultivate them. that's pretty much all that it's about. Yeah, so I'm probably gonna keep this kind of thread rolling, because there's part of what I've been doing over this year, especially, instead of making content, is cultivating my crafts, which are, you know, cooking, building, like I'm doing house renovation and making furniture and stuff. Pottery I haven't been doing this year, but I intend to get back into next year. Herbs and tea, it's kind of similar to cooking. And qigong and meditation. And writing, which I'm going to do a whole separate video about because I got stuff to say. But if there's one thing to kind of impress on people, it's that that everything that you do has a shape, and that shape is the material of the craft, or even the craft itself. So the words that you say have a shape, and so the way you talk should be something that you craft so that it is an accurate and effective and authentic expression of who you are at as deep a level as possible. But also everything that you do, the way you use your body, the way you hold your posture, the things you eat, the things that you make to eat or, you know, to put into the world, the relationships that you make with people. The most mundane things are also the material of the craft that you inhabit the world as, if that makes sense. And so it's just cultivating an awareness of those things and understanding how they are actually the tools that you use to build your kind of empire of your life, the palace, or the temple of your life in the space and time that you have available to you in your life, that you shape your whole life with, that defines what the outcome of your life will be at the end. So on that note, stay tuned, like, share, subscribe. That's what everyone says. That's kind of like a kind of incantation as well. Like, share, and subscribe. Do it. Give me your money. And talk to you soon.